Willpower has never made anyone rich. Not once, not in the history of money. And yet it's the only tool most people are ever handed when they decide to fix their finances. Spend less. Save more. Just have more discipline. As if the problem was ever a shortage of trying. Here's what nobody tells you. The harder you rely on willpower alone, the more predictable your failure becomes. Not because you're weak, because willpower was never built to carry the weight you're putting on it. Tonight, we're going to take apart exactly why that is, and more importantly, what actually replaces it. Not motivation, not another budgeting app. Something underneath both of those things that almost nobody talks about. Part 1. The willpower illusion. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Willpower is not a character trait. It's a finite, biological resource, closer to a battery than a personality. Every decision you make throughout the day draws from the same limited supply, whether that decision is what to eat for breakfast, whether to answer an email, or whether to transfer money into savings instead of spending it. This is why the same person who resists a purchase all morning will often cave to a bigger one by evening. It isn't hypocrisy, it's depletion. By the time most people sit down to make an actual financial decision, their reserve of self-control has already been spent on 100 smaller decisions they don't even remember making. Here's the part that makes this worse specifically for money. Financial discipline is almost always the last decision of the day, not the first. You don't wake up and immediately transfer money into a savings account. You wake up, get through hours of decisions, distractions, minor frustrations, and only then, exhausted, are you expected to make the one decision that requires the most restraint. It's like asking someone to run their fastest mile after they've already run 20. And there's a second problem hiding underneath the first. Willpower requires you to consciously fight an impulse in the exact moment it appears. But impulses around spending are rarely conscious. They're triggered by things you've stopped noticing: a notification, a sale email, a habit of opening an app the second you feel bored. By the time you're aware enough to use willpower, the impulse has often already won, because it started before you were paying attention. This is why telling someone to just be more disciplined with money is a little like telling someone to catch a ball after it's already hit the ground. The moment where control actually mattered already passed. Part 2. The environment effect. So if willpower isn't the answer, what is? This is where most self-improvement content stops short, because the real answer isn't inspiring, it's structural. Your financial behavior is shaped far more by your environment than by your character. Not your environment in some vague, poetic sense. Your literal, physical, and digital surroundings. What's visible? What's one tap away? What's the default option when you're tired and not thinking clearly? Consider this. If a shopping app sits on the home screen of your phone, with saved payment details and one-tap checkout, you are not the same person, financially, as someone whose banking app requires 3 steps and a manual card entry to complete a purchase. Same income, same goals, completely different behavior, because the environment did the deciding before willpower ever got involved. This is the part that gets missed constantly. Discipline is not a fixed quantity you either have or don't have. It's a function of friction. The more steps between you and a bad financial decision, the less willpower that decision requires to resist. The fewer the steps, the more willpower it demands, and we've already established that willpower runs out fast. Think about why saving money often feels so much harder than spending it. Spending is usually one tap, instant, immediately rewarding. Saving usually requires you to manually move money, sometimes across several screens, for a reward you won't feel for months or years. The environment isn't neutral here. It's tilted, and it's tilted towards spending by design, because spending is what generates revenue for nearly everything competing for your attention. This is not a coincidence, and it's not an accident of bad luck. It's the result of enormous amounts of engineering, all pointed in one direction: reducing the friction of spending and increasing the friction of everything that would prevent it. Which means the fight was never a fair one. You were never just competing against your own discipline. You were competing against systems specifically designed to outlast it. Part 3. The identity loop. Here's where most conversations about money and behavior stop, but the real leverage point is one layer deeper than environment. It's identity. You don't rise to the level of the financial goals you set. You fall to the level of the financial identity you actually believe you have. If you've spent years quietly telling yourself, I'm just not good with money. Every dollar you save will feel, on some level, foreign, like it belongs to a version of you that doesn't exist yet. And most people, uncomfortable with that unfamiliarity, will unconsciously find a way to spin it back down to a level that matches the identity they're used to. This explains something that confuses a lot of people about themselves. Why a raise or a bonus so often disappears within months, back to the same financial baseline as before. It isn't bad luck, and it isn't necessarily bad math. It's identity correcting itself back to what feels familiar. The behavior isn't the problem. The behavior is just the visible symptom of a belief running quietly in the background. This is why financial advice that focuses only on numbers so often fails long-term. You can hand someone a perfect budget, and if their internal identity still says, "I'm the kind of person who's bad with this," they will find a way, consciously or not, to prove that belief right again. Identity doesn't ask permission. It just quietly steers behavior back toward whatever feels true. The reverse is also true, and this is the part worth sitting with. Small, consistent proof, not motivation, not a single big win, but small repeated evidence, is what slowly rewrites that internal identity. Not, "I saved a huge amount once." Something smaller and more repeatable. "I am someone who moves money into savings on the first of the month, every month, without exception." Repetition is what turns a behavior into an identity. An identity is what eventually makes willpower unnecessary, because you're no longer fighting yourself. You're just acting in line with who you've quietly already become. Part 4. Building the system. So if willpower isn't the lever, and identity takes time to shift, what do you actually do starting today? You build a system that requires less of both. Start with friction, because it's the fastest lever available. Make the behavior you want automatic, and the behavior you don't want inconvenient. This might mean setting an automatic transfer to savings on the same day your income arrives, before you ever see the money in a spendable account. It might mean deleting saved payment information from apps you tend to overspend on, so that impulse purchases require enough extra steps that the impulse has time to fade before you complete them. None of this requires more discipline. In fact, it requires almost none. That's the entire point. You are not trying to become a more disciplined person overnight. You're trying to build a structure where the disciplined choice is simply the path of least resistance. Next, attach a visible marker to the behavior you're building. This sounds small, but it matters more than it seems. A simple, visible tracker, a check mark, a running total, anything that shows the pattern accumulating, gives your brain something concrete to register as progress, rather than relying on some future, abstract payoff that doesn't feel real yet. And finally, protect the identity you're building with language, even in your own head. Instead of thinking, "I'm trying to save more," start thinking and saying, "I'm someone who saves consistently." That shift sounds cosmetic, but it isn't. One frames the behavior as a temporary, effortful project. The other frames it as who you already are. And people find it far easier to maintain who they already believe themselves to be than to keep re-earning a temporary goal from scratch every single day. None of this means the old approach, gritting your teeth and forcing yourself through sheer willpower, never works. It can, for a day, a week, sometimes even a few months. But it's expensive in a way that isn't sustainable, because it's drawing on a resource that runs out faster than most people realize, over and over, for years. The people who eventually build real financial stability aren't the ones with the most willpower. They're the ones who stopped relying on it as the main strategy and started quietly engineering an environment and an identity where the harder choice simply required less effort to make. So before you close this and go back to whatever tab was open before, pick one piece of friction in your own life. One save card you could delete. One transfer you could automate. One sentence you could start telling yourself differently. Not everything, just one thing, small enough that tomorrow you doesn't get a vote on whether it happens. That's genuinely where all of this starts.